Okay, welcome. What you see here is a watercolor, well, a photo of a watercolor, which I'll show in a second, which might show up. And I wanted to just, another rabbit hole I went down was animation. I went down the wrong one at first, all that 3D stuff. That looks really difficult, but kind of impressive, I guess. But I wanted to start with something simpler, almost like the days where you made multiple pieces of paper and flipped through them to do an animation. More like cartoons and, I don't know, old TV shows. But that's what I'm going to try to do, and I'm going to try to move 4 of those ducks and kind of wink the eye of one of them. So let's get rid of this and bring in the first. You'll see, I'll get rid of the picture in the background. That first screen you see is the live view of the iPad where Procreate and ToonSquid are. That's the 2 things I'll be using. This is the original watercolor on watercolor paper. Little tiny thing. But I've always kind of liked it for some reason. I don't know if there's actually, other than in the bathtub, real yellow ducks, but maybe. I don't think I've ever seen one. So there will be 2 screens. There's the screen we're looking at, and then there's going to be the actual feed coming out this wire right here from the iPad. So that will look clear, but you can't see really what I'm tapping on in that one. So that's a shame, but that's just kind of how it is. So let's get started here. And our goal is to go from Procreate right there. Yeah, I think that shows up. Go from Procreate into ToonSquid. So the first thing I'll bring up is Procreate, and I'll, just for documentation, I'll show which version it is, 535, and I'm on a iPad Pro 12-inch, but I think all of this would work on another smaller version of iPad, I believe, unless you got really carried away. So I have a stack here, which is kind of like a folder of Zen Ducks, I'm calling it, ToonSquid animations, or animation. So originally, this is the file that I had just in here so I could put it on Fine Art America or just have it in digital form. And it did not have any of this stuff originally. It just had the one photo down there at the bottom. It says watercolor photo. So let's turn that off and turn on what I want to show, which is my little notes to my future self, probably. If anyone else gets anything out of this, that's great too. But the overview is I'm going from Procreate, a canvas and artwork, as they call it, to ToonSquid, which is for animating things. And what I could not get to work, as the little star here indicates, that copy and paste always brought something into ToonSquid that was way too big. It was this whole canvas, even though it may have been just a duck right there. And you try to squeeze it, move it around, and I just couldn't figure out how to get it smaller other than to do this. You take this canvas that we're in here, and I copied it 4 times. I made 4 copies of it because I want to animate the background, which is here with this pink number 1 in a circle. I wanted to do this Zen Master Duck sitting here, over here on the bank of the river. Number 2, I have his eye open and close. And number 3, the 3 ducks together, like the younglings, I guess you could say, they come floating in from the bottom. And then number 4, like the almost master teaching sort of Zen duck, he's going to come from way over here and float downriver and stop there. At least that was the plan. And I think it works. But to get all of that, I need 4 separate canvases. And once you make the canvas and get it looking right and the right size and all that, then you just save it as a PNG file and you're kind of done. You can delete those out of Procreate, or I can. So that's step one, making this 4 and working with each of them. That's kind of step 2, where you go into each of the 4 canvases and if necessary, isolate the layer, delete the other layers, and then share, as in save it as a ping. And I saved mine into photos right there, which is on the desktop. Let's look at that. So I think it starts here. Yeah. So I saved these 4 canvases just to get these states in the animation. But they're not done states, they're just initial states. So there's the Zen Master duck on the bank of the river with his eyes closed. And then I did not need to do this one, but I did anyway. There he is with his eye open, which is the original watercolor painting without the ducks. And you know, you have to fill in the water because there was a duck there and 3 ducks there. And then I isolate the ducks. So there they are, looking way too big. But that worked perfectly in ToonSquid. And there's the teaching, whatever, almost master Zen duck. So that's what's in my photos. If we get out of here, you can see these 4. And I'll need those for ToonSquid. So let's get rid of photos, go back in here. So then step number 3 in my little setup here would be to go into ToonSquid. And this is as much as I've learned. I'm sure there are other ways. ToonSquid's timeline, we'll see when we get there. And you click the little plus and you're basically adding an image, which is one of the 4 pings. This says here, click plus each ping, and we added it as an image. And then you move and resize and put it in the initial position if you need to. And number 4, this is the part that puzzled me for quite a while, is you really can't animate just one thing. And I kept trying to animate one image, one frame, and that really doesn't make sense when I thought about it. You got to have some frames to animate. So the first thing you do for each layer you bring is you kind of extend it. Just pick some number of frames you want. I picked, I think, 24. For this demo, we might just pick 12 because you can see them all without having to go left and right. And then number 5, on wherever your first frame is, you will tap a little diamond, which stands for keyframe. And that changes how things are working somehow. And that allows you to move like this big duck or these 3 ducks up and down and all over the place. And it tracks that. So you don't have to redraw the duck here and redraw the duck there and redraw the duck there or copy and paste it. But that's like some kind of magical thing. You just drag the duck and it remembers where you put it and how to get between it. And it animates all that for you. So that's kind of cool. And number 6, I say repeat 3, 4, and 5. 3, 4, and 5 above for each timeline to be animated. And that should be a D right there. There we go. Nah, we'll just leave that off. I got it wrong. So that's my little overview. Hopefully it's showing up well enough to read. Maybe not. If it's not, let me get rid of this background and then see if that's more readable. I think that's more readable. Also retype these in the description so you can see. Maybe I can put the duck back. No, I can't. I don't think I can. Can I? Yeah. There we go. And then 1 and 2 are just the background. So there it is with the duck in there, but I'll take it out. Anyone wanting to look at this, that should be more readable, although it looks like a doodle, which it is a doodle. So put this background back. Wow. Now we're done in Procreate, or we hope we are. But you can see the 4 canvases here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're of different sizes, except the first two are really too big. But that turned out okay. So now let's leave Procreate. And let's start up, where is it? ToonSquid. Now I have one I already did, so we'll tap on that and just play it. And I slowed it down and everything. I went to a few extra steps that weren't necessary. So let's go back and do one from the get-go. Or hopefully I can do one from the get-go. So let's add a new one up here in the upper right corner. We'll call this, I don't know, demo 2. And I've got it set to 4K. You'd probably want something less than that. Let's slide this down to 12 if it lets me. There we go. 12. I don't really know the difference between traditional and keyframing. I think traditional means you draw each frame, because you can draw in ToonSquid. You can do everything in ToonSquid. It just seemed logical to me that I have ToonSquid and I've had Procreate for quite a while. Why wouldn't I want to animate some of the things in Procreate where I already understand and have more control at drawing and doing things? Although this isn't bad, what little I played with it, but I haven't played enough to know if I could really do something like a drawing, artwork. So traditional, I think that's for drawing and one frame by frame kind of thing. The keyframing, I guess it takes away the traditional and just does for keyframing. But keyframing seems to be there anyway. So let's create. And unfortunately, you're getting a big, nasty glare from this white, which, just like Procreate, let's turn that. I don't know how to make it another color. So we'll just leave it. And we already have a layer 1, which we don't want. Well, now, down here in the lower left-hand corner, hopefully you can see my pointy thing. Hopefully you can see the lower left corner, maybe not. Maybe I've zoomed in too much. Let me zoom out here. That is weird. It's like right there. Huh. Maybe it's over too far. I don't know. For some reason, it is not picking that up. Or I just can't see it clearly. So we'll go ahead anyway. I think it's pretty clear. Lower left corner. I tap plus. I see the menu coming up. So we're wanting what I'm doing. We're going to tap on image, and it'll ask us where to get it from, and we'll say photos. And what we want out of photos, if I remember correctly, is here's our 1, 2, 3, 4. We want this first one, which hopefully will be the guy. Yeah, he has his eyes closed. And then I turn on this magnetic thing up here along the top. Looks like a magnet. And then this little square beside it, I tapped on freeform. So then I can drag this and it will kind of snap to the right place. You saw that, hopefully. So now this layer does not get animated, but it does get extended. So you see it's calling it image 2066. We can rename that. Let's call it just BKGNDI closed. Not that that matters. Oh, don't need to hit return. Okay, so that's good enough. So we're on that layer because it's highlighted as opposed to this layer. Background, you can't get rid of it. So it's kind of like Procreate. Often you wonder why it's even there. But we'll tap on 12. And then in the lower right-hand corner, which I hope shows up, I'm going to tap on the word extend. So now we have, unbeknownst to me originally, we do have an animation. And if we tap play, it's playing, but nothing's happening, of course. So this goes to frame 1, the double arrows to the left, double arrows to the right go to the last frame we got going. In our case, it's 1 through 12. I'm going to slow this down ahead of time because I know I want to. Instead of 12 frames per second, I'm going to make it like 8. So just tapping on that brings up a slider. And since I know that this is my background and I don't want it getting because every time you tap up here, it seems to grab whatever it wants to grab, which is often the background and gets moved around. So I don't want it moving around. So I'm going to go into that menu again by just tapping on there and click lock. So now I can't move it around. So let's go get our next thing, and we'll maybe cut this short a little bit because I'm probably going too long. And we'll bring in the next image. And again, we import it from photos. And let's just grab the big duck, or the teachery duck. So there's the teachery duck, right? I can resize them, I can rotate them, I can resize them. I can undo all this over here with this little arrow pointing to the left with a curly Q. And okay, there we go. So let me try to remember what the next step is. I will shrink this down and wait, undo that. I think it's still in the wrong one. Let's do uniform. Okay, now when he shrinks, he kind of stays even all the way. So let's have him start here. Keep him on screen. You could put him out here, which is what I did in my final animation. But let's put him right there. And he's in the water. He's headed down to here. And let's see. I'll turn off this white. It doesn't really turn it off. So we're on frame 1. Obviously, again, we're highlighting this. That's annoying. So let's do that. And then go over to frame 12 because he's going to be in the whole animation. This is just a simple example. Let's extend them. Go back to frame 1. Turn on this little key, this diamond shape that I mentioned in the other thing. It's a diamond shape that means keyframe. And now all these options come up. I believe the magic thing I was missing all along is to tap on one of these, like position. And you can see that made a line all the way through all those frames. And if I look closely at this, I probably can't see it on the screen. Some little shape came up in the middle there. So let's try dragging it and see what happens. Nope, it hasn't happened yet. Okay, so I guess that's because there's nothing to animate yet. So let's go to frame 4, highlight that. Let's see if the magic starts now. Yes, it does. So that's the little magic part. And maybe you can't see, maybe you can on the iPad feed. There's a little diamond right here. And light circles or diamonds going away from it. And that means it's keyframed its way from here to there. And when we play it, it's going to animate that. So let's try that. See how it moved? I never moved the duck. To me, the last time I moved the duck was to put it over here in the corner. So let's go to, say, how many of these we got? We got 12. Let's go to 7. And this time we'll grab the middle of the duck. And you can still rotate and stuff. You see another thing came up when I rotated it. Like, this is really smart about watching what you're doing and making that a part of the keyframe. So let's slide this duck down the water a little bit. He's getting closer to being back where he started, or where he wants to be. So that's frame 7. So let's play that, see what happens. He moves. He's a bit robotic and a bit, you know, kind of happens too quickly. We'll fix that in a second. So let's get him a little closer. Let's say frame 10. And then let's have him slide into the larger body of water. Rotate him back a little bit. Bring him down. Make him a little bigger because he's getting closer to us, right? So now you saw it did 3 keyframes. It watched, saw we moved it. It saw we rotated it. And it saw we made it bigger. So let's go to the last one without playing this one. And just move him back into what I think is the final position. He looks straight enough. Move him over there. Make him bigger, much bigger. Move him back up. There we go. So now let's play that whole thing together. Voila. You just went from Procreate into ToonSquid and animated a duck. I know, not the greatest thing ever, but for me, this has always been kind of a cool thing to want to do. I think it's maybe natural when you're drawing and doing art, you might want to animate at some point. So let's see. There's something about the animation making it do things. Let's see, do I remember how that goes? Yes. Once again, the magic is when you highlight that, cause position to be highlighted. A little graph along the bottom came up. When I tap that little graph, they call it easing curve. And it's just has something to do with how the object is being animated. So let's pick one that's really intense, like elastic. So now we'll go back to the again and play, and you should see, go back and play, it kind of jilted right there. So that's interesting. And it does remember, he's in and out. So he's like jumping in and jumping out. Now how to make that last longer, I think you have to somehow, and I haven't figured that out yet, hold or extend that particular group of frames. But I'm still working on that one. So let's go do this one at the end, and that'll probably be it for this video. Let's do maybe bounce. Yeah, bounciness. Let's make him very bouncy. Let's make his first bounce very intense. Okay, let's see how that goes. Huh. I'm not sure it actually did anything. Let's try it before we get there. Bounce. Ease in, ease out. Let's try that again. Nope, I can't see it do anything. Once again, I'm probably missing something here. But now we can use this little pointy down arrow over here. It's like a line with a pointer beneath it to open and close the timeline. So we could play our animation a little bigger. So let's move on to the very last thing that you would do. Let's say this is done. And we go to export up here, actions, export at the top. And most likely you want an MP4, but you could use an MOV if you're going to edit it in Final Cut Pro or some other software you got somewhere. And here we can review our frames as they happen. Still don't see the jump up and down bounce thing, but that's okay. So now I would export this to, let's just put it in my photos. Save video, we'll put it in your photos. You could put it somewhere else you want. Let's get out of ToonSquid and go see what our final, you can see I've had a bunch of them. Here's what our final thing looks like. And I don't think there's a loop here, but maybe. No. Nope. So that's all there is to it. Took me a while to get to that part, but hopefully this has been helpful. I know it'll be helpful to my future self, who hopefully learns a bit more about ToonSquid. Reading the handbook hasn't been all that helpful. So with that, there's the original. There's the moving one. He never thought it could happen, but there it is. So with that, I will say, if anybody has any questions that I can't answer, I have a feeling a lot of people could teach me a lot of stuff about this, but if you do, I will answer them. So with that, I'll say peace. And peace again.